Alright folks, today we're going to be talking about using line to create our drawings. So we're going to be doing a series of observational drawings using what we call contour line, which is the outline of an object. So to start with, the things you're going to need for this, you're going to need a piece of paper, a blank paper, no lines on it. You'll need a pencil, a pen, a marker, something that you can make a mark on your paper with. It doesn't really matter as long as you can make a nice clean line. And then you will need an object to draw. I have a pear here that I'm going to be drawing. I do recommend that you start with something that's kind of simple if you're new to this, but you can choose whatever you want. Once you have these in hand, the first thing we're going to do is actually divide our paper into 4 blocks. So I'm just going to fold mine to get those. I'm going to fold it from top to bottom. Make a nice crease, and then from side to side, another nice crease here. Now if you're working in a sketchbook and you can't pull your paper out of your sketchbook, then you might need to just use a ruler or some kind of straight edge to break those shapes down. But doing that will give me 4 sections. It should be pretty even. Alright, in the first box, I'm going to do a drawing just from my memory. Just what I think that object looks like. In the second box, I'm going to do an observational drawing. What that means is I'm going to look very carefully at my object and draw it just as I see it. In the third box, I'm going to do a continuous line. This will be where I put my pencil down to the paper and I won't pick it up at all until I'm done drawing. And finally, we're going to do what's called a blind contour. You might guess that from the word blind here, that means we're not going to be looking at something, and I'll show you exactly what that is when we get to this one. Okay, so for the first step, I'm going to draw this just from memory. So again, I had a pear, so I'm not even going to look at it. I'm just going to use my lines and draw what I think a pear looks like. So again, I'm not looking at my object right now. Just remembering the shape of a pear. It's kind of wide at the bottom. A little more narrow at the top. I think it's got a stem in here. And that's pretty much, that's what I remember a pear looking like. And if I look at my pear, oh, that's not too far off. That's about right. But there are some things I can notice right away. For one, look at the stem. In reality, the stem is longer and thinner than what I drew here. Also, look at the overall shape of this pear. It doesn't really match what I drew. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about this step here, observation. What you actually see sometimes doesn't match up with what we remember. So it's important when you're starting to learn to draw that you practice looking at the objects that you're going to draw, because sometimes you're going to find that what's in front of you might not really be what you expect. So let's try this now. This time I'm going to really look at my pear. I want to find the contour, the shape, the outline of that pear. And I'm just kind of tracing that with my pencil in air just to kind of get that practice of what the shape of this is. Now I'm going to come to my paper and I'm going to try to copy that shape just as closely as I can. So I notice the top of the pear comes up and then down. It is wider at the bottom. But look at that little dip there. I didn't have that in my original drawing. It's going to come back up. It curves in just a little bit right here. And then we're going to come right back to where we started. That's a lot closer to my actual shape of my pear. Let's put the stem in here too. Notice it comes up and it curves out. Points off in this direction. Let's compare those two. My second drawing, do you see how much more this looks like my real pear than the first one? You might recognize this as a pear, but you wouldn't recognize it as this particular pear. That's why we do these observational drawings. Let's move on to something a little bit different. These two techniques here help you train your eye to look for those lines when you're drawing. So with our continuous line, what you have to do, you're going to put your pencil to the paper and not pick it up. You might have noticed when I was doing my observational drawing here that sometimes I stopped and I picked my pencil up and started again. With your continuous line, you're not going to do that. So let's try this. All right, I've still got my pear, the same object. And this time, I'm not going to pick my pencil up at all. I'm going to sit that pear down for a second so that I can hold on to my paper. So it may be tempting right here to pick your pencil up to draw that stem, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to keep going. I did not pick my pencil up until the very end. Now, with a simple shape like a pear, that's probably not quite so complicated. If you had a more complex object, then you would probably get some very interesting overlapping lines. I'll show you an example on the back with a more complex object. Let's take my staple remover here. Say I was going to draw this object. I'm going to set it right here. Alright, I'm going to start right here at the edge of it. Again, I'm looking very carefully at that object, looking what's in front of me, and trying to draw it as I see it. Notice that I'm not picking my pencil up for this because it's a continuous line drawing. Now what do I do when I want to come here? See, I'm keeping my pencil. Keeping it down. I'm not picking it up. And this might not be the most accurate drawing in the world, and that's okay. What you're doing is you're training your hand and your eye to learn how to speak to each other, basically. You're training your hands and eyes to communicate so that your hand can draw what your eye really sees. Alright, so notice how some of these lines just kind of overlap with each other. That's okay. When you're doing a continuous line drawing, that is exactly what you're looking for. Alright, let's do the last one. So the last one's fun. This one's called a blind contour. Alright, so here's my pear again. Right, I can see it off screen. Just wanted to remind it what it looks like. Your blind contour, you are going to look only at your object. You are not going to look at your paper. Okay, so you're basically drawing blind. Do not expect this drawing to look like a very good drawing, but it's going to look interesting. Alright, so I'm going to take my pear and hold it in my hand. Alright, and I'm just going to look at my pear and you guys get to see my super weird blind contour drawing here. Alright. This doesn't necessarily have to be a continuous line drawing, although it might be easier for you to make it one. Okay, well that doesn't really look like any pear I've ever seen, but what it did, it forced me to focus on the object itself. It forced me to really look at what was in front of me. And so even though the drawing doesn't turn out very realistic, you're training your hand to start copying those shapes and lines that you see. So this is good exercise to do from time to time. And also, you can just get some really interesting results here if you want to do maybe a more abstract work of art. Once you're done, you can choose to color these or leave them just as lines. But this should finish up your practice for observational drawing.